What was your cringiest sexual experience? Wait a few dates before having a blowjob. Why? I was getting my first blowjob from my girlfriend at the time and she was a bit goth and moody HT. I didn't know she was into pain play too. Found out when she bit down really hard as I was pulling out and dragged her incisors on my dick and ripped it up. She was way too into it and started licking up the blood. I had the most confused orgasm I have ever had in my life. Then I had a lot of pain and cried for about 15 minutes as she tried to bandage it up and told me to suck it up. It isn't that bad. She explained that she believed she was a vampire. I told her that I believed she was my ex as well. Dropped her back off at school. And never talked to her again. Always get to know them first. Always. I fell asleep masturbating. My brother walked in. Laughed at the sight of me holding my dick with PRN still playing. My parents came to see what he was laughing at. They laughed too. My brother woke me up by throwing a shoe at me and I was so embarrassed that I immediately got dressed and left the house for a few hours. My dad told my grandparents and promised to tell everyone at my wedding. My boyfriend at the time pulled out and came, shooting past me over the edge of the bed about 3 feet. Directly onto the face of my mom in the picture I had on my mini fridge. When I was a teenager my mom knew I was having sex with my girlfriend. She was like, X23 you need to make sure you are wearing a condom. Which was awkward enough by itself. But then she was like I bought some for you. They are in the bathroom. FCK me. Cringe through the roof. Then one day my girlfriend and I were home alone. Went looking for mum's condoms. And couldn't find them anywhere. So I literally had to text my mum asking her where the condoms were. So I could then proceed to bone my girlfriend. She replied instantly that they were in the bathroom under the sink. Except that they weren't. So I didn't get boned and it was super cringy having to ask my mum that question. To make things extra spicy cringy, we later found out that my little brother had been using them to masturbate. Which is why they weren't in the bathroom. My girlfriend wanted to try roleplay and tried to do the whole bad secretary is there any way I can keep my job scenario. My friend told me the key factor to make a woman feel good is being funny. So I came home with a girl in the middle of the night. On the way to my bedroom I told her you're going to walk funny tomorrow. She's giggling and asks me the obvious why. Are you so big? Dot. After which I locked the door and said the sarcastic no. I'm going to cut off your legs. After sex I once put on Wallace's voice and said cracking SX grommet. It still makes me cringe to this day. I dated a 25-year-old virgin who set up an elaborate dinner with friends to gain their approval of me before she would attempt to have sex. I was invited to dinner with her friends but didn't know that it was a setup. She later told me when we were more comfortable. I arrive at her house to have dinner and see her and her friends on the floor in candlelight. While we are eating, I notice my ex making hard eye contact with each friend. After they would do that, the friend would leave. After all friends left, it was clear she wanted to lose her virginity. She approached me aggressively, made out with me for 30 minutes, then takes off her shirt and bra. She gets on her knees topless and uncomfortable and crawls between my legs as I sit on her couch. She goes to unbutton my jeans, but stops and immediately starts hysterically crying. She spent the rest of the night venting and I spent it consoling her. I felt really bad for her but was also a bit creeped out by the charade. I was at a party with my then ex-GF in high school. Both of us are pretty drunk and she wants to have sex so we go to the upstairs bathroom, lock the door, and turn off the lights. I lie on the floor. No condom. And she proceeds to ride me. I have narcolepsy, so I tend to fall asleep at inappropriate times. This being one of those times. I fell asleep for who knows how long. I wake up to the sudden urge to come. I yell get off. Push her off me. She hits her head on the counter. And I come all over myself. Sad moment. Strong pull-out game though. Once while my boyfriend was eating me out, I felt things get suddenly much more wet downstairs. I sit up a little. He pulls away to see what's wrong. And blood is gushing from his nostrils. He looks down at my now gore covered cooch and flips his tea thinking he broke me or something. Asking if I'm okay and if he accidentally bit me. I calm him down and tell him he has a nosebleed and we go get cleaned up. He was just dehydrated. Spent the rest of the night cuddling and sipping water and we laugh about it today. First time. My boyfriend called me his ex's name. Then lost his boner from guilt. We ended up just watching a movie. Was 16. With the guy I lost my virginity to. I think it was maybe our second time having sex. We were having trouble finding a rhythm as we were in the backseat of his car. And after a few minutes of fumbling around we finally got the hang of it. And as though I had no control over it I looked him in his eyes and said, "Are you feeling it now?" MR. Crabs. We ended up laughing it off but I was mortified. Still don't know why I did that. Same guy a few weeks later called me mommy while we were starting to get frisky. And I was so turned off and uncomfortable we had to stop. Saw him on Tinder recently and his bio says success auditorying, so it's great to see he's doing well. Had sex with this girl I had just started dating in high school. I started getting dressed after we had done the deed and at this point I was only in my boxers and I was facing away from her. We were mid-conversation and she stopped talking right when I pulled the boxers up. I turned around to look at her and she had a horrified look on her face but played it cool then acted like nothing was wrong. Slightly confused. I said bye to her and headed home. I had to go number 2 later on in the day and look down into my dropped pants when I was on the john. I had the largest and most undeniably prominent skid mark I have ever had in my entire life in my underwear. You could clearly see it from the outside of the boxers. This is the closest I had ever come to crying from pure embarrassment and shame. She cheated on me shortly after and I still sometimes lay awake at night with the look on her face burnt into my memory. I couldn't even tell my closest friends about that at the time. Back in college this girl came over to my dorm to Netflix and chill. It was going well and we had plenty of snacks to eat. After a while things start to get a little frisky and I slide down to eat her out. She's having a good time. I'm having a good time. Everything's going great. But then out of my stupid f-king mouth comes the words. You taste like potato chips. We're both just stunned for a second at how I could say something so stupid. She buries her face in her hands and goes, "Oh my god, that is such a turn off." She's about to get off me so the only thing I can think to do is to shove my tongue back in her. Surprisingly it worked but for the rest of the night I knew that's all either of us were really thinking about. This is how I learned to keep my mouth shut during sex. Why are men typically so silent during sex? Well. Edit. Just thought of something relevant. God gave us 2 brains. And only enough blood to run one of them. Edit 2. Heads. Not brains. I was drunk one time and a male friend of mine, I'm a straight guy, convinced me that I didn't know if I would like having my dick sucked by a dude until I tried it. So I did. My dick remained flaccid the entire time. Then he convinced me to let him try licking my asshole. So I also did. I'm not even mad because his logic is irrefutable. There's still time to call this dude back and say no homo. Agreed to have sex in the shower with a random hookup. She comes over. Doesn't want to have a shower. I'm confused as to why. After she refused the shower, you still proceeded with the solo shower. My ex called me a League of Legends character's name when I was giving him head. The character in question is Eri. If you all were wondering. Your BF has a Finnish gay lover named Ari and is a quick thinker. One time I got my balls stuck in a Gatorade bottle. Context. I drink a lot of coffee so sometimes I get a serious case of palpitation and get gag reflexes especially when I'm full. So yeah. Me and my GF just finished eating and I ate a lot. So while doing the deed, I started feeling a little nauseous. I finished and managed to get to the side of the bed before vomiting. She felt really bad because she thought it was because I thought the sex was disgusting. She even asked if she smelled bad down there. I tried to tell her it wasn't her fault and it was only because I was so full. She didn't believe me. Haven't had sex since and it has been 2 weeks. Get really full around her and vomit again. First time me and my girlfriend hooked up. We were making out. Getting a little touchy-feely and she reached just above my knee searching for my penis. She was going to be sorely disappointed. First time I signed up on OKC I immediately got messaged by this chick who said hi. My name is Sarah. And I smell horrible. I didn't believe her. But she really smelled bad. She gave me a blowjob in my dad's basement and I never saw her again. What the FCK? I asked if we could watch PRN because I couldn't get it up. It was my first time. The night I lost my virginity. We went at it missionary for 45 minutes. I had to be home for curfew. He didn't finish. And cried while walking me to my car. Now. He's out and proud. Edit. I can't believe my top comment is about losing my virginity. Anyway, we're actually really good friends. He's a lot happier now and so am I. We look back on it and laugh. Left iTunes on shuffle. Weird Al played. It just didn't work out. Came after making out for a few minutes. Yeah, girl already told us. Maybe banging a girl on top of raw insulation? Sure was cringing afterwards. Probably worse for her if she was on bottom. Went home with a Tinder date. Kissed and got naked. And threw up in her bed before we could have sex. This thread just keeps getting worse. Met a Tinder date at her place. Surprise. She has 2 young children of which I was unaware. Extremely weird for me, but it's just a dinner thing, not a hookup. I thought. This woman is being aggressively sexual while shooing her kids away every 5 minutes. Atmosphere makes it clear she wants me to stay the night. So she goes to put her kids to sleep. So far it's been uncomfortable but not a deal breaker. Then one of her kids calls me daddy. I'm in my early 20s. I freaked the FCK out. Made an excuse. And left. Edit. Wording. Also. Ugh. My inbox. Had a girlfriend that wanted to do anal. She was pretty adamant so we tried for a bit. Lubed up real good and did a lot of butt play. When we finally got around to the deed her butt tore a little and she was bleeding on me. I called it but she wanted to keep going. I had to tap out cause blood isn't SI to me. She thought I was being rude. I couldn't win. Right in the middle of F-king my then girlfriend. I think it's the perfect time to say. So I hear you suck a lot of dick. In response to someone telling me she used to FCK some random guy I met at a recent party. While I was FCKing her. What in holy crow was I doing? Why would I say that? Needless to say it ruined the entire night at that exact moment. BF and I had just finished on the couch one afternoon. When he gets up to pull some dinner rolls out of the oven. I hear him say OWWFCK. And rush in to see what happened. Turns out he burned the underside of the tip of his dick on the oven door when pulling them out. I should have been more caring. But I burst out laughing. He was out of commission for about 3 days after that. Edit. Maybe not cringy for me. But definitely for him. I once had sex with this guy and it was taking forever. Usually not a problem. Except it was super boring. After like 45 minutes of straight missionary. I was like, are you at least close? He replied, I'm not some high school chump. We both left unsatisfied. 45 minutes of just missionary? How f***ing raw were you? Edit. My top comment is asking someone how raw their vagina was. I came on my high school girlfriend's belly twice in one evening while she was attempting to help me lose my virginity. I was a teen who got caught masturbating by my mother. She told my dad and later when he got home they gave me this big speech about masturbation. They're super religious and talked about how I'm wasting my seed and God didn't create the sexual limb for recreation. It's only for procreation. That tea was so humiliating I suppressed it in my memory until now. He fingered my belly button. I can only assume he thought it was my clit. But how? Edit. Yeah. It's an erogenous zone for some people. But I'm pretty damn sure he thought it was my clit because when he finally touched my actual clit he was surprised. Yes. I communicated. No. He wasn't even close to finishing me off or close enough to be able to try to. If you wanna find the G-spot. First time having sex, dude asks can I try something? Proceeds to shove 2 fingers in my ass. No prep. No forewarning. I note the FCK out of there. Was a virgin. Jerked it like 20 times in a row that morning before leaving to hang out with my new GF. She later snuck me in her parents' house to spend the night. And things got hot and heavy. My soldier refused to answer the call. Edit. Forgot the cringier one 2 months later. We're F-king in her car and she started crying and wouldn't tell me why. Most uncomfortable moment of my life. Who the FCK jerks off 20 times? Good lord, I'm surprised she didn't notice how absolutely raw it must have been. Me and this guy were drinking Tanqueray and tonics in his living room and he told me he wanted to lick my feet. He started licking and sucking on my toes. He then quickly got up and ran to the bathroom and threw up violently. I was like, I'm gonna go. We were both 17. I was the weird goth girl and he was a football player. He pursued me for a few months and I eventually agreed to hang out with him one night. When I got there, a couple of his friends were passed out in the living room and he was pretty drunk. I decided to stay anyway and we wound up having sex. It was just awful. He could barely keep it up. He was sloppy. And no part of it was close to enjoyable for me. One of his friends also walked in a couple times and wound up telling the rest of the football team about our little encounter. Not appreciated. So that was cringeworthy. But the cringiest part is that 12 years later, he still messages me once a year or so to tell me it was the best sex he ever had and still thinks about it. That's sad and I don't want to hear it. The first time I had sex she took a condom out and went to put it on me but she played with me for a little bit first. I had never had a condom on before so wasn't sure if she had slid it on or not yet and we just laid there awkwardly for a minute and I lost my boner and she thought I didn't like her. My grandparents caught me jerking off. They told my folks. My mum almost caught me one night beating it to Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. Luckily I heard her coming down the stairs so I packed things away in time but I obviously looked shifty. The next day they had some friends over for dinner and my mum proceeded to tell everyone in hushed tones that she'd caught me playing with myself the night before. I was sitting right behind them. I was in the living room. They were in the dining area of an open plan room, with my older sister and one of the kids of the family friends who was my age. There's a special kind of hell for adult family members who do that kind of shitty. FCKU. Mum. FCKU. Right in the middle she gets down on all 4 and demands to get spanked. Dumbfounded I ask why and she, completely serious and a bit teary, says because man is born in sin and deserves to be punished. First time I had sex with a guy that I'd been going on dates with for a couple weeks asked did you think I'd have a big dick? Right after we finished. My husband and I lived with my brother and another roommate back when we were first dating. One night my brother asked us if we wanted anything from McDonald's and we said 2 Cokes. In the time he took to go, we decided to have sex. We closed the door to my room. Yeah, no. The international sign for we're naked in here. In the middle of us having sex. My brother just opens the door to give us the Cokes. The cringiest part of the whole thing? He doesn't walk in and freak out or leave. He just turns his head and holds out the Cokes for us to grab. I wanted to die.